Welcome to Dave and Dom Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystifying.
So, welcome to today's show. We are sat in a hotel lobby, so if you can hear the lift music, which is sort of behind us, then don't be too surprised. But it's a fabulous location, actually, and we are very lucky to be joined by Nadine from Sarwa. Welcome, Nadine.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Fantastic. So can we just start with a brief introduction to yourself and a brief introduction to Sarwa, please?
Of course. So my name is Nadine Mezher, and I'm a co-founder at Sarwa, which actually means wealth in Arabic. And that sort of speaks to our mission of why we created Sarwa. I like to say that I'm very multidisciplinary. I have 2 degrees, one in business and marketing, one in fashion and pattern making, so very different.
Very different.
But interesting enough, my first job out of university was in a bank. And then I traveled. So I'm Lebanese, grew up in Saudi, lived in Italy, lived in France, been in the UAE for the past 16 years. So this is home. And I've worked across geographies and across industries, including actually the government of Dubai, on activations and retail strategy. And 7 years ago, me and my 2 co-founders, we launched Sarwa. And so that was my journey into financial technology.
So what was the light bulb moment for you to say, there's an opportunity here and we think we could kind of fill that opportunity?
I think it's really the complementary strength of the co-founders. So my co-founder, Mark, was in Canada, and he saw, in North America how the financial industry and services were really developing. And every time, he would come here and we talk to family and friends, we realize there are opportunities to really bring some of these services, some of these products here and help what we like to say democratize investing and make it more easy and accessible, especially for a young generation. And this is really what sparked the idea of launching Sarwa, is to kind of be part of the change in the story in the region and trying to create, hopefully, generational wealth for the young population and for the young professionals, but also to make them, invest in a smart way and providing these services to make it easy for them.
That's brilliant. You've been running for 7 years, right? So what's been the journey now? And can you give us some numbers of customers or assets under management? Just give us a feel for how well, things are going.
They're going really well. Sarwa is definitely growing quite exponentially. We started out of Dubai and we cater to, mainly the UAE market, but also we have clients from everywhere in the region. And in terms of registered users, so we have upward of 180,000, and we keep growing from there. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's an astounding number, I think. So
thank you. It's really important for us to try to grow and reach as many people as we can.
So in terms of, I guess 7 years ago, the world was very different from what it is today. But I think you started in Dubai. I'm sort of trying to reflect on Dubai 7 years ago. It wasn't the incredible sort of technology-focused place it is today, is it? So, I'm kind of interested in, you had the idea, you saw the opportunity. I think you set up in DIFC to begin with. So, I'm kind of interested in that. And then you're now based out of ADGM, which is in Abu Dhabi. So I'm kind of interested in sort of how you've gone from Dubai to DIFC to AGM and what were sort of some of the triggers behind that.
It's been an amazing, rewarding journey. When we thought about launching Sarwa, we looked into the region, and Dubai was a natural, decision for us because the city offers so many opportunities in terms of ease of business, infrastructure, attraction of talent, and especially regulation, as we were talking about, because they're very forward-thinking, right? So with the regulators here, it's been a conversational approach where we started. So we were the first fintech to receive what we call the innovation testing license, so ITL, out of the FSA, out of Dubai. in our category because we were the first to provide these financial services for retail clients. So it was sitting with regulators on weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, and then kind of taking them through what we're trying to build and how we build it, because it was important also for them to make sure that the end user is protected. So that was really one of the main reasons why Dubai was our main consideration. And it's really, as you know, it's a hub, not only physical hub, but even in terms of trade, in terms of global, time zones. It was a natural way for us to actually launch such a platform. And for a very young population that's extremely tech adoptive and very kind of eager to try new services when it comes to technology.
I guess Dave and I are both kind of founders in the past as well. We kind of built and sold businesses, and those businesses lasted quite some time. So my last one was like 12 years before we exited. But I think the challenge is like it seems like you got a head start because you got in early. You've grown really well, but if I look at like around us in GITEX, there's so many companies now. The government is extremely supportive. The regulators are extremely supportive. What are you doing to stay ahead of the game? Like now you're going to have more competition, right? And there's new technologies.
And does that relate to the move to ADGM as well?
Oh, interesting. Interesting question. Actually, see, the culture in Sarwa has always been you don't wait for the wave, you go ahead of the wave, right? And it's always about we need to anticipate what our clients need before they even think that they actually need that. So it's always been about innovation at the core of what we do and very customer-centric, right? So it's a lot of insight into the market, what they're looking for. That's also why we started with one product and now ended up with an umbrella of products. Right. So Sarwa, maybe I take a step back and say what Sarwa is about. We're actually a wealth management app where you can actually have one view of how your money is doing across different verticals. So we have the passive investing, which we refer to as robo-advisory. So that's the invest. So that's long-term diversified portfolios. Then you have the self-directed trading. So you can buy and sell stocks, ETFs, and crypto. And we have a sort of like a saving product where you can put your money and there's high yield on your money, and we're adding as we grow. So part of how do we stay ahead is to always think what's next, to always kind of push on innovation.
So just quickly on the saving product, so are you licensed then?
So it's a money market fund, and basically you put your money and there's a certain percentage that you get on that money sitting in the account.
Very interesting. So what was the product that you started with? Sorry.
We started as a robo-advisor. So at the time when we launched, we realized that a lot of people here are not really able to save for retirement. That was really the initial idea that Sarwa was built on. And then the more we started listening to our clients and to the market, realized that it was also important for our client to sometimes invest in products that they truly believe in, aside from, the low risk portfolios, or actually that thinking of the future, they would want to invest in high tech companies or in green companies or anything that they actually truly believe in. That's when we launched Sarwa Trade.
It's so interesting. And then, you've got things like crypto that people can trade now as well. As you say, you're sort of quite a broad church in terms of investments. A question I've got is, when sort of some of the trends emerge, how do you avoid sort of the pitfalls of kind of jumping in for the sake of jumping? Because, customers may well be coming to you and saying, well, look, why don't you add this? Because this would be a great product. But long term, it may not be a great product. I'm sort of thinking about things like NFTs, which, there's a lot of people who are sort of still smarting over their investments in NFTs. So how do you avoid kind of putting products in that are perhaps not long term at the customer's best interests, despite them saying we want it?
So it's a lot of analysis, right? So it's also strategic thinking. So we have the long-term roadmap that we keep adjusting based on smaller tactics. But the reality is you look into the market and you also see what your clients need, but within the limit of what really the mission is about, and also the resources that you have in place. Like sometimes we would want to do, you're founders yourself, so sometimes you would want to do so much, but the reality is as a company you have limited resources, so you need to take that into account too. So that it becomes a priority list of what can we do, what can we provide that we know is something that will benefit the end user eventually, right? So yes, we added crypto, but we're also big on education and making sure that people understand that, listen, this is not for everyone. It's still a volatile asset, and there is risk associated. So look into the other products that we have. And then we started seeing and noticing that clients do not necessarily start into investing from one place, but tend to also move into other spaces once they really get the hang of it.
Fantastic. I looked at your website and I think you have advisors as well. So is it a hybrid model? And when did you introduce like the hybrid side of it?
It's one of the key differentiators of Sarwa, right? When you launch a company, you need to understand your market and the affinities and the subcultures within that. And that's one of the reasons why we focus on a hybrid model. Because we are a tech company. So first, we're a tech company. But you understand also that people need that reassurance of having a human that they can talk to. And that's why we actually launched with a hybrid model, and we still continue with the hybrid model.
It's so interesting. My daughter's just started as a apprentice financial advisor in a St. James's Place practice. And I had a chat with her and I was like, I think she was worrying about the future and was she going to get taken out by some AI and all the other bits and pieces. And I said, you know what, at the end of the day, I think people still want the reassurance of talking to somebody when they're making big decisions which involve lots of money. They want to look somebody across the table and say, yeah, this person gets and I'm not sure you get that with technology. And maybe that's a generational thing. Maybe that will change. And I said to her, look, the trick that you've got to learn is how to work with this technology and use it to best advantage. So, I'm guessing that's the approach you take with Sarwa.
Oh, absolutely. That's very well put. And I think that's important to know, right? And again, like I said, it depends on the market. So you realize in certain market, the adoption of technology is much faster. Here, Dubai generally, and the UAE, and the region, I would say, because it's a young population, so you do have that eagerness to use tech. But there's still the importance of the human element. And that's a cultural thing. And again, like when you're thinking about how can you launch a product or a service into a market, is what is your market looking to have in place? And like you said, it's always important to combine the human and have the technology supporting the human and making the process more efficient, more, easier and convenient for the end user, but providing them with that trust and comfort.
Which is, I think it's a fantastic model, by the way. So, but I'm a tech guy, so I've got to ask you, what do you see in the horizon in terms of technology that will support you further or take the proposition even more competitive? For example, starting to see now some solutions taking advantage of, let's say, quantum compute that's available on AWS for things like portfolio rebalancing, which, is for scenario playing, it's a huge amount of maths. So quantum kind of makes sense, but they're combining it with AI. I just love all of that kind of things. Are you doing anything like that?
Can I just say, we've managed to get 15 minutes in, and this is the first time we mentioned AI. So congratulations to us all.
Absolutely. Look, Sarwa was, again, we're a tech company built in the cloud from the get-go, right? So we started super digital, smart algorithm from the get-go. As we evolve, we're adding more and more layers of technology, right? And like you mentioned, you have all of these. So we started with the smart rebalancing, but now everything is really growing exponentially, where we start talking about really hyper-personalized advice when it comes to portfolio buildings, and that's definitely coming, and I think that's the next big trend. And everything that has to do with quantum computing is still being adopted as we go. You have, of course, the high layer of customer support and the use of AI in customer support, operational efficiency. So all of this, we always look into how we can integrate it and how we can incorporate it. Just to ultimately, it's for the benefit of the end user.
And now just slightly on the crypto track, because we don't really, like in the UK, we don't have a lot of acceptance of crypto. Not like it is here, like fully, almost like it feels like it's fully supported by the government. What are you doing on the crypto side apart from like the basic, buying, selling of crypto? Are you allowing people to lend against their crypto, staking, and any other aspects of crypto other than just buying the coins?
We haven't gotten to that level, but to us, crypto has always been, as I mentioned before, a way of diversification. Yeah. So you want to add that element of, high risk, high reward potential to your portfolio, then go ahead, right? Like for us, it's important for every client to understand also that they have a personal financial situation and they need to really see how much risk they can take. So again, going back to the education piece, because it's part of our mission to really help people build wealth and being smart about how they invest money, it's also important for us for them to understand, the different assets. And it's exciting to have such an asset, but also understand how you can manage it in terms of the risk associated. For us, for now, it's all about buying and selling crypto as a mean to create wealth.
Just on that wealth balance and diversifying into different assets, because most wealth companies always talk about this, but the one asset that they don't really talk about or support is property. Do you see any avenue into kind of like property investment in the future maybe, or how can you help people to manage wealth that they've got in their property? For example, in the UK, the equity release products that typically support people that are in their older ages, if they get ill, to release some monies, pay for medical fees or whatever, right? They're extremely poor, but I just see, I'm looking for companies that maybe, reinnovating old products like equity release, because it's like your property is a massive part of wealth for some people.
Absolutely. Our exposure through Sarwa to property is through REITs, and that's what we currently have. But to us, nothing is ever off the table, right? It's always, as we were talking, like what more products can we add that kind of help us also to remain innovative, but also to try to provide different, investment opportunities. So we're always looking into what we can do next. Property is a very interesting investment asset. I come from a bit of that background because my father has been in real estate for most of his life. So I've been exposed to that element. And I feel like there's always two layers to real estate investment. One is really emotional and one is really as an investment. And I think people now started to really make that differentiation between, okay, I want to buy a house because that's going to be my, my home. Or I wanted to buy it as an investment and then look into what that actually means, as you said, in terms of liquidity, in terms of maintenance, in terms of expenses versus returns that you have in place.
We met a company last time we came, Stake. I don't know if you've seen them. And, the whole idea of fractional ownership, I love it here because in the UK, you're limited by the number of people you can actually put onto a deed. So although you can probably invite your, uncles and fathers to kind of co-invest with you, you can have only 4 people, right? But here, it's done much more properly, I think.
Yes, and you have few other companies doing that too. So it's a very interesting model. And Stake are actually our neighbor in the office, so we know the team very well. And I love that. And it's part of the beauty of the IFC is when I'm not sure if you've been to the innovation.
We have. I mean, it's. Yeah. I mean, and the phenomenal, and the fact that it's sort of expanding. So. I'm guessing 7 years ago you'd have been in a fairly small, and they're talking about 300,000 square foot.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, Dharmesh and I were saying if we were 30 years younger, this is where we'd definitely be.
There's a beautiful energy to it. We were on the other side of the IFC when we started, actually, and like you said, so we were part of the FinTech Hive, the accelerator at the time, and it was a smaller space. And then when they asked us to move to the other side of the IFC, it's like, why are you moving us to the other end of the world? But now you go, and it's buzzing with energy and companies and innovation, and it's amazing.
I'd use the word excitement. Yeah. Like, even we talked to Her Excellency yesterday about AI, and, she seems really excited. Like, people are excited about sort of technology in the future, and I just think it's really great. It's great to have that energy. I'm going to go back to a question I asked earlier, because you're now based out of ADGM. Does that mean you've kind of grown up? And I mean, I don't know. What's the dynamic
like
between?
So for people who don't really know how the UAE, in terms of jurisdiction is split, you have the free zones, so what we call the offshores, and then you have the mainland. And DIFC is considered a free zone. It's an offshore jurisdiction, and so is ADGM. And you have regulators in each jurisdiction. So you have the DFSA in DIFC, you have the FSRA in ADGM. Now, initially, Sarwa were regulated by both the DFSA and the FSRA because we started out of DIFC, and then eventually we wanted to really kind of expand into the UAE, and we have also ADQ on our cap table and Mubadala as a lead investor for our last fundraise. So we grew the team in Abu Dhabi, and we grew the offices in Abu Dhabi, and then we realized it does make sense to centralize and to kind of bring everything together in one place.
Fantastic. No, it's really interesting. And thank you, because I think it's really important that people understand the differences. I think, we Brits sometimes can be very clumsy in terms of we come to this place and just assume it's all the same, to be honest with you. So I think it's really good to kind of get that understanding. We're sort of running out of time. I've got 2 questions which I'm kind of keen to ask before we finish. The first is to do with your reach. I guess one of the things we've sort of really started understanding is that Dubai and the UAE and Abu Dhabi are you're sort of in the middle of the new world in many ways. You're sat between sort of Asia and Africa, and are you sort of thinking about expansion into new markets? Do you feel excited about the prospects of sort of these markets as well? And so that was my first question, is about expansion, and the other is about, for you as a business, if you've been going 7 years, you must know more about how people are using these platforms, or a platform like yours, than most other companies out there. That may make you a very attractive proposition from a platform point of view. So are you thinking about, as well as a B2C play, a B2B play?
The way we look into it is how fast are we growing, how fast do we want to grow. And Sarwa, and as you notice, the UAE population has been growing exponentially. And that kind of, every time we think about a new geography, then we realize that we're hitting these growth numbers just catering to a market that is growing itself. So it's an amazing place to be. And I think it's a unique place to be nowadays, currently in the world. So when we look into expansion geographically, we definitely consider why we want to expand, and also what format, what can we do. So when you consider moving into a new jurisdiction, you need to also be regulated in that jurisdiction. You need to have, the compliance team. There's some data consideration to take into place, when it comes to regulation of data. So then we start thinking, would it be a better approach to have, GVs or partnerships or these sort of expansion plans? So again, for Sarwa, it's always, we adapt, we pivot, we move as the company grows. But for now, the UAE has been really growing by itself. So it's been offering that opportunity of growth for us. And when it comes to your second question, which was...
Platform.
Yes. When we initially launched Sarwa, white labeling was part of the thinking, being a B2B. And then we realized it's a very completely different platform you want to build. And it's a completely different market segment that you want to cater to. Yeah. So we decided to focus on our core segment, which is the end users. So for now, that's what we're going to be.
In a way, that's so refreshing to hear, to be honest with you, because I think there are so many people in your position who, they see the opportunity of becoming a platform that they take their eye off the ball from kind of delivering against customers. So I think it's a really, really interesting perspective. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been
My
a
pleasure.
Fabulous conversation.
Thank you.
Brilliant. No, really wonderful conversation. Great business. I look forward to hearing more about it in the future.
Thank you so much.
To the UK, maybe.
No.
I'm joking.
Hopefully, as we say, inshallah.
Please come to the UK.
Thank you so much for having me.